actual Karen here. Okay, boomer. Some people think there could not possibly be a group I have less respect for than Donald Trump and the congressional GOP, but they would be wrong. I was raised Southern Baptist, the kind where you go every time the door opens. I went to a Southern Baptist college, and I was a religious education major. The idea that someone else's perceived sin is worse than your own is my sticking point with most of the evangelicals. I don't care much about what they say in church, but I do care if they decide to put it into law or inspire others to go out and attack people. Take Reverend R. Albert Mohler, Jr., president of Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. Back in 2016, he said Donald Trump would be the greatest evangelical embarrassment, but he has flip-flopped. Mohler, like a really obsessed Mohler, has decided to attack St. John's Episcopal Church for being too LGBTQ friendly. It is Gay Pride Month, or would be if Trump decided to sign the declaration. But deflection, distraction, look, gay, 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 gay. Trump is Presbyterian. The Norman Vincent Peale power of positive thinking kind. We all know that Trump believes in thinking positively about himself, and anyone who disagrees needs to watch out. Mohler does not care for the theological character of Episcopalians in general. He has probably never been there, but says, but those who know the Bible as the inerrant and infallible, verbally inspired Word of God will profoundly also not like what is done to the Bible inside the St. John's Episcopal Church. We can discuss whether God verbally inspired Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, but how inerrant and infallible were the guys who translated it? Is what is done to the Bible in St. John's worse than what is done when you're saying that God chose Trump to bring Christianity back to the White House? Is it like it's like they have no idea who Trump is when they've been using him as a what not to do sermon topic since the 80s? They know exactly what he is. In the beginning, real Christians were praying God would change him. Now, the evangelical right is just praying they can keep him in office until they complete their agenda, which is what we called in that Baptist college legislating morality. My first protest sign was against mandatory chapel services and said, you can't preach a free gospel to a captive audience. Back then, we believed that you led people to Christ by witnessing to them, and then God would do the changing, instead of forcing them to behave the way you thought God wanted them to behave by making things illegal. They don't care what Trump is like. If he says he has never done anything he needed to confess or be forgiven for, who cares? They are packing the courts with people who will use their own personal interpretation of the Bible before the Constitution. The problem? There are exactly as many interpretations of the Bible as there are people reading it. Sooner or later, they will have to decide which one is more correct. Donald Trump's agenda is about him, and he has never tried to keep it a secret. Not only did he cheat on his wives, He recruited newspapers and photographers to document his latest conquest because he thought it would make other men jealous. He said in a presidential debate that evading taxes means he is smart. He will say anything to get people, including himself, elected who will make laws that will benefit him financially. He was 40 when he first registered to vote and has changed parties more times than he's changed wives. He has been on every side of every issue, depending on who will give him the most money. Now, Mohler and the evangelicals are praying just to keep him in office. But the old guy is going completely over the edge and into the abyss. He has to stay in office, or someone, including the right, will investigate the entire Trump dynasty and he'll have to pay for his own defense. Trump is too old to be tap dancing this fast. Back in the 60s, someone would donate money to the college only if none of the guys grew long hair, beards, and mustaches. Everyone just had to get as hairy as possible. Now they're locking up toddlers, building walls to lock out more of the least of these because it is better if evangelicals can't see them. There was the war back then, but now, by Flag Day, Trump's birthday, we could double the number of deaths on that Vietnam Wall because of a pandemic that Donald Trump chose to ignore the warnings of because the numbers would look bad. Now they have chosen to ignore the reality of it for the same reason. Just like the 60s, police are still killing unarmed black people, and there are riots in the streets. But things are looking up for the evangelicals because Trump accidentally chose a gay-friendly church to denigrate by using it as a political prop. Now, the impacted Mohler, remember him, Mohler, and the evangelicals couldn't be happier that he posed at that church. Trump's numbers are going down, and nothing perks up the evangelical polls like gay bashing. Do not let them distract you. For almost 4 years, deflection has been their main tactic. Don't stop calling and writing. Protesting in a pandemic only if necessary. Yesterday, because of you, they sent the active military back home and disarmed the National Guard in D.C. And today, Trump is sending the Guard back home, and Barr decided that deploying the military should be the last resort. Wear your masks, and try to use social distancing. Bye.